In 1988, I took my first job as a full-time weather guy at a small little TV station on the other side of the Adirondacks in Watertown, New York. And much like the story we just heard, it was a brand new station. They just put the antenna up, they built a building, they did the whole deal from scratch, and they started a newscast. And there's a TV station that's been there for years and years, Channel 7, and pretty tough to go up against. And Channel 50, the place that I went to, was having some trouble making inroads doing the news. But I was learning about weather, I was going to school, doing what I was supposed to do. But what we did was we decided to start a kids show that was running on Saturday mornings that I was the host of, I was writing, and a good buddy of mine was directing, and we sort of did this whole thing, the two of us. It was called the TV 50 Caboose Club. So we had this set, it had the green in the background, we could make it look like we're moving, and we'd go visit kids around Jefferson County. Well, lo and behold, that show ended up doing better than the news, which was unfortunate for TV 50 and the sales crew, but I felt okay about that. At least I was part of that. So in 1989, the year later, at the New York State Broadcasters Association, we won an award for the kids show. So we went down to Saratoga Springs, which is where they do that one, and there were only two of us. The guy was talking about Ted, and I was there. So they placed us at a table with people from WPTZ. I didn't know anything about WPTZ. I didn't know anything about the Champlain Valley, but we got to talking to these people, one of whom was Erin Clark. Who remembers Erin? Okay. She still works for our company out in California. There were a couple of reporters there too, and these guys were all there because they were getting awards. So I got to know them a little bit, and it was fine, and we went on with our lives. But soon thereafter, I saw an ad in the trade magazines saying they were looking for a weather person at WPTZ. And I said, oh, I really enjoyed talking to these guys. They were great. So I answered the ad, and I got invited to come out and do an interview. So I came out and interviewed with Stewart Ledbetter. It went so well, he bought me a cheeseburger. So you never know how these things go, and in those days, as you all know, I mean, this was a big deal to even apply for a job. You had to do the tape, you had to do the resume, you had to go to the post office, nobody had any money, the whole deal. But anyway, Stewart asked me if I wanted to work there, and I said, you bet I do. So packed up and moved to WPTZ in 1990. And in those days, Stu, of course, was the news director, so he was my boss. And the station was pretty centered in Plattsburgh. We certainly had a bureau in Vermont, but it was centered in Plattsburgh. So I got to work hand in hand with Stewart for a number of years, really throughout the 90s. I've never met a person who cares more and is more meticulous about what he does, to the point where, oh man. But it makes for a great product. So Stewart decides that he's going to go back to reporting, so he ended up spending a number of years in Vermont while I was still in New York. And Stewart and I, we certainly worked together, we'd see each other on occasion, but not day to day, until recently, where we just moved back, or moved to Vermont, our new studios in South Burlington, so we're all there now. And it was really interesting to me to find that this guy has not changed a bit in almost 30 years that I've been there. Because I'm in the studio, we've got this beautiful weather center, and I get my work done, so I think, and I kind of cruise out to the newsroom. Stu's in there, he's got his headphones on, he's typing away, and he's doing this video thing, and I'm ready to fool around. I got a joke for him or whatever. I said, hey, Stu, what's going on? Earphone comes up, he goes, get out of here, I'm trying to get this done. The only thing he left out of that was, I don't do weather, I got stuff to do here. He has not changed a bit. And as I say, nobody cares more about what he or she does. And I'm very, very proud to work with this guy. So what do you say we take a look at this guy's career? We've got a great videotape here that was done by NBC5's Jamie Broussard, who's in the back helping us out right now. Jamie?
Hard to believe, but this is how it all started.
This meter shows how many gallons of raw sewage is processed at the plant. About 1 o'clock this afternoon, the plant processed almost 5.5 million gallons of sewage, 1.5 million more than the plant has rated.
Watching pollution spew into Lake Champlain,
This was Stewart's first story for Channel 5 back in 1984. And in spite of the crappy story, he stuck with it.
Stewart Ledbetter, News 5, Burlington.
And boy, are we glad he did. Back then, he was the new kid on the block, coming from the Hall Radio Group.
I go back a little ways with him. We're just talking how many decades when he was just a young lad. Stewart worked in our news department, and what a news department there was here at WJOY.
Then, as now, Stu was drawn to politics.
The battle for City Hall right now is too close to call.
At City Hall
The survey found incumbent Bernard Sanders ahead.
and the Capitol,
I hope that the people of Vermont will understand it.
covering the major stories of a generation.
Jefford said there was no deal. He would have left the GOP had the Democrats offered him nothing. We don't yet know how much of a national implication this decision might have, whether a gay marriage license in Vermont would mean a lot elsewhere. We don't know that quite yet, but here at least things are changing. After spending a fortune and still losing here and in Iowa, the once mighty Dean campaign now moves south and west. Of all the sounds filling the hall at Norwich, the ones you could not hear were hearts breaking.
I have been Stu's competitor, and I've been his colleague, and I'm much happier being his colleague.
You're watching WPTZ News Channel 5. And now, coverage you can count on.
In the 1990s, Stu added a new role as news director. He hired a lot of promising upstarts. He even hired me. Back in those days, we had a lot of fun.
Something's going on over there, Tom.
Hey, everybody!
Ratings climbed
In tonight's HealthCast.
and newscasts expanded. A team with personality all its own. Many now in top markets.
I'm David Bienick, and I'm a news reporter at WCVB in Boston. Back in 1994, no one wanted to hire me as a reporter anywhere, except for Stewart Ledbetter.
He had a huge impact, and believe me, we were green. So his ability to identify talent and bring people along, mentor us, give us guidance as a news director, it was pretty profound and very much appreciated.
Now a story that was breaking here last night. News Channel 5 Stewart Ledbetter is live in the Vermont newsroom with our Project Economy report. Stu.
Well, Gus, this infuriates the Douglas administration.
In the 2000s, Stewart returned to the street
This is Vermont This Week.
and added Vermont PBS to the mix,
A new year means a new inaugural in Montpelier.
joining a panel of reporters on Vermont This Week every Friday night. Who could have known
The Republican primary, though, what's going on with you and Bob Dole?
how 35 years would unfold?
This is a quiet rural community, much like quiet rural communities all over our tri-state region, that now is the scene of an intense manhunt.
What impact Stewart would have.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stewart Ledbetter.
He is shaking hands all over the State House. Everyone knows Stu, and he loves those face-to-face connections. That's where stories come from.
When you walk into the newsroom, he's always doing something. He's got his headphones on, he's like glued into his stories.
And he always has time to share that love of storytelling with the next generation.
A little compliment or a little side note or, hey, I saw your story, I thought you did a great job. That means a lot more than he probably even knows, especially for us reporters and producers who are just starting out. I don't think he knows quite how much his words mean to us.
I have absolutely no doubt that if Stewart wanted to be a national news correspondent, he could have been. He has the writing talent, he has the smarts, he has a phenomenal voice, he has that great newsman hairdo. But he didn't want that. He wanted to serve his community. That's how he defined success.
And for that, the Vermont Association of Broadcasters welcomes Stewart Ledbetter to the Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome NBC5 anchor and reporter and now VAB Hall of Famer Stewart Ledbetter.
Well, I'm very aware this is the most dangerous place to be. The last guy on the stage, the only guy standing between you and the bar. and that table over there looks especially anxious, so I'll keep it short. You know, it's funny how VAB night fell on Pearl Harbor Day, or as Tom Messner might like to call it, it's a mixed bag, folks. Thanks to Tom. It's an inside joke at NBC5, the mixed bag thing. 40 years ago, I got to work on my father's political campaign. And that was the very first exposure I had ever had to members of the news media. Later, at UVM, a friend encouraged me to go to try out at WRUV, the campus radio station, where standards were very low, thankfully. A couple of visits and I was hooked, and that led to an internship and a hire, and that's how it worked out. I just wanted to tell you a story or two. A word of gratitude, really. I mean, none of us get where we are without a hand, without encouragement. You've heard that, I think, from everyone here tonight. People have to hire you. For me, it was Diana Green, it was Rob Mahalik, it was Joe Marone. I have worked for 2 general managers in radio, 8 general managers in television. I got great advice from Al Tompkins at the Poynter Institute, who is the best. I started in radio. I still love radio, but when Richard Gallagher, the gravelly-voiced anchor of WCAX, called me up and asked me to be on You Can Quote Me, I, of course, said yes, and that was it. I was hired as the new kid on the block at Channel 5, the Burlington Bureau, which was maybe a block or so from here, and I was off into the big world of crappy tube cameras, 3/4-inch tape machines, and 600-watt lights, because you needed 600-watt lights because the cameras were that bad. Technically, everything has absolutely changed since then. Yes, it's very nice to be in high definition, but the core of what we do every night has not changed really at all. We find out about stuff and we share it. You still have to be accurate. You still have to spell people's names right. You need not be a fake or a phony. In Vermont, I really don't think that works for very long at all. Hear people tell you what they think. Last weekend on Church Street, a woman of a certain vintage stopped me and said, "Stewart, I don't approve of what you have done." And I thought, oh Christ, this could be anything. I saw you at an axe throwing contest. I saw it on the Facebook. And I said, "Ma'am, I've never thrown an axe in my life." No, I saw it. I saw it on the Facebook. And I backed away slowly, but more, and anybody who's on air will know that, more often you can be maybe at a diner or in some public place, and the thing that I've heard a few times is, "TV doesn't do you justice." which if think about that, what they're really saying is that you look like hell on the evening news. After 35 years, which is what it's been now, I've been asked a few times, and I should share this because you're my state. Why didn't you leave for the big city? For the network. I grew up in southern Vermont, and Vermont is my home. But the truth is that I was right on the edge 4 times. I always thought I had to work in Washington, D.C. And when I finally got a good offer, I agonized as I have never agonized before and declined. I was not at all sure I'd done the right thing, but it's funny how it all turns out. I've got to cover presidential candidates and farm auctions, civil union and train wrecks, and political debates, which were sometimes train wrecks too. I have loved working for Hearst Television. I have loved my Friday nights on Vermont PBS, and I have been lucky. This is a fabulous little state. It is a good thing to know its history and to be able to share that with the next generation of journalists who move in and we hope stay a while. At Vermont PBS, at Hall, and at NBC5, I have worked with so many talented people over the years who have generously forgiven my occasional lateness and eccentricity. Broadcasting is a place, in a place like this, rather, is something that should really be a community of friends. And I am proud to call you mine, and I thank you so much for this.